Hello, welcome to this week's journal entry. This week, I'm going to share a side of me that you probably haven't seen before. And that's probably because I have never shared this. I don't think I've shared it, definitely not in a podcast. I don't even think in my Instagram stories, in a post, anywhere. I don't think I've ever shared this. And it's not really intentional. It's just something that I don't focus on. But I was thinking about it, and I think that it's a big reason as to why I am the type of mom that I am and why I am the woman that you see today, which I believe is a patient mom and confident in how I'm parenting. But I wasn't always this way. There was a period of time where I didn't know what type of mom I was going to be. I think when you have a newborn, you're just kind of going through the motions of feeding, changing diapers, playing, entertaining, that sort of thing. But then as your kid gets a little bit older, there's more that is required of you. And then, especially as they get into the toddler years and definitely preschool, and discipline comes into play. And even before discipline, there's just like boundaries that you might need to set and things that you want to do. And your kid obviously doesn't want to, and they start practicing independence. And that's the point where, as a mom, we get to decide like how we show up in those moments. And I didn't always show up super patient and understanding. I have snapped at my son before and screamed at my son before. I fake cried. Actually, the one time that I fake cried, some of those were very real tears, which I will share in a little bit. I also held my son's door shut, like aggressively, as he was screaming on the other side of that door to get out of his bed. And he wanted me to come in because it was bedtime and he wanted to stay up later. And none of those things align with being patient and calm and understanding. I just tried all of these antics to see what would work and honestly, like what would get through to my son, because the times that I yelled at him and raised my voice and even fake cried, those were the moments where I just was like over it, like exhausted and like I just can't put any more energy into whatever it is that we were doing. And so I was just doing like just trying whatever came to me in the moment. But it was really powerful because I was seeing what would get through to him. And I didn't know this at the time, but I was seeing how that would feel for me, what would feel best as a mom in showing up in that way. I feel like we don't know what we don't know. I remember a friend telling me that she did the whole fake crying thing, and she said, word for word, it works like a charm. And she loved it. She did that in so that her son would like comply with her and like would do what she wanted her son to do. And so I think we almost have to try all of these different parenting strategies to see what works and to see what feels best for us. Snapping and screaming at my son, and even honestly just raising my voice, instantly backfired and continues to backfire when I do raise my voice. It made his meltdowns 1,000 times worse. It just escalated it because it added on another layer. Like whatever he was melting down about, now it was that plus the fact that like, oh my gosh, my mom is mad at me. That's almost what it seemed like to me. And it just like exploded. I have had members of my family comment at how sometimes it doesn't seem like I even react to Griffin's meltdowns. Like I'm almost unfazed by them, which is so interesting because internally I am very much fazed, but it's because I follow the idea that kids will do what you give attention to. So if you don't give attention to poor behavior, they'll do less of it because they're not getting any attention from it. And likewise, if they are doing unwanted behaviors and you're yelling at them, even though you're yelling, telling them no, they're getting your attention. And Griffin is directly motivated by my attention, positive or negative, ideally positive, but definitely negative too. And so when I do react, I appear unfazed to his meltdowns. So that's just something that I've learned that works for Griffin and for me, that keeps my nervous system calm. I've definitely worked hard to get to this place where it doesn't spike my nervous system. And I've had podcast episodes on that, even a full masterclass on that if you want help with that. But that's how I handle meltdowns, but even more so with my parenting, how I handle myself as a mom. The fake crying. Fake crying made him stop what he was doing, but it filled me with immense guilt. The moment that this happened, I was exhausted. And I remember I was trying to get him to lay down for a nap, and he was not having it. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go rest anyways in my bedroom. And he followed me in my bedroom, and he was laying on the couch, and he was like, I think he had monster trucks. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to close my eyes. And long story short, he threw a monster truck at me, and it hit me in my face, and it actually really did hurt, and I cried. But I like really amped up the crying because I wanted him to feel bad. I wanted him to feel like, no, this is not okay, right? And the look on his face when I was doing that made me feel so guilty for putting my emotions on him versus just processing them on my own. It was like I felt like I had to have that experience to realize the importance of like, I am the adult here. I think all of my feelings were valid, and I have the responsibility to not put the onus of that on my son. Just my personal preference of how I do this. Clearly, this works for my friend, and she loves the outcome of this. But for me, that's what I learned from trying this parenting strategy. Now, with the closing of the door of the bedroom, not gonna lie, that worked. And it felt great because I was to the point again where I was just ready to tap out. And it gave me the couple of minutes of breathing that I needed. Whenever I tell my son, like, mommy needs a break, mommy needs to go take a few breaths, he does not like that. And he starts yelling. So I just closed the door shut and held it shut. And I just took a couple deep breaths. And even though there was screaming in the background, it felt refreshing. And after a couple nights of holding that door, it actually did work as a bedtime tactic. And for me, I was all for it. So that I'm okay with being that mom. All of those things taught me the type of mom that I wanted to be. And that Griffin needed to be. I feel like this is a two-way street. Like, we are learning how our kids best respond to us, and we are learning the same thing about them. So, in a nutshell, Griffin needs me, and I want to be a patient mom, a mom that sits with him through his emotions and not uses them against him. Also, a mom who sets boundaries, but is also flexible in other areas. I feel like I'm a very flexible mom, especially in certain areas, but I also have very firm boundaries too. And I think that both of them are important. And lastly, a mom who repairs our relationship and trust when I do put my emotions on him. I try and make this a big priority. Definitely in that moment of when I did the fake crying, not in the moment, but later on, I did repair. And if you've never heard of this term, repairing in parenting is when you bring back up the situation that happened and just let your child know basically what you did and how you feel about it and what you will do the next time. So I would say to Griffin, do you remember when you threw your monster truck at me and I started to cry and then I did XYZ, just kind of paint the picture? And he would say yes. And I could say, I felt like I acted out of line and I could have left the room and taken a few deep breaths. I apologize if I made you feel any sort of way. It's not your fault for making me feel that way. I should have done this, something along those lines. So I try and do that as often as I can, because something that I do is I internalize how other people feel, and I don't want that for him. Once I knew that these things were important to me, I took an interest in really diving into and embodying them. So I did two things. The first is I developed the skills through lots of different ways. I was just open to any and all information. I signed up for courses. Lots of Instagram accounts are out there for parenting advice. Also, my friend Cindy actually helps moms with their kids through challenging behaviors with routines and visuals, which I love. Actually, go check her out. Her Instagram is at mama underscore vision underscore. She's got tons of free parenting advice, and she was a huge help. And the second thing that I did was I had to turn off a lot of my quote unquote default settings. For example, my friend Cindy taught me about the power of using choices to make pretty much everything easier. Having choices allows our kids to feel like they have the independence and that they're actually the ones making the choices versus feeling like we're the ones telling them what to do all of the time. But in actuality, we are the ones only giving them the choices that align with what we want them to do. There are so many examples of choices, like unlimited, so many. So, just to give a quick example, at dinner time, you could say, do you want to eat from the red plate or the blue plate? Like, either way, it's dinner time. I don't know about your kids, but Griffin is in a stage where he just doesn't want to eat dinner. And I think it's because he knows that it's dinner and then bedtime routine. So he just doesn't want to eat dinner. So it's like, we're eating dinner. Do you want the red plate or the blue plate? Or when getting dressed, we're getting dressed. That was a huge thing for Griffin. Do you want to put your shirt on first or your pants on first? So it's pretty easy to think of these choices once you get in like the routine of it. To me, it's pretty easy to think of them when you're not in the moment. But I remember Griffin being in the bathtub and him not wanting to get out. This is a normal thing after we get through the fact that he doesn't want to get in. Once he's in, he doesn't want to get out. And I was thinking in my head, okay, what options can I give him right now? And nothing was coming to me. I think I said something like, okay, do you want to get out and read a book or do you want to stay in for 5 more minutes? Clearly, he chose the option that he wanted to do, which was stay in for 5 more minutes. And in my head, I'm kicking myself because I'm like, wait, I don't want him to stay in for 5 more minutes. I want him to get out. So, like, those two choices weren't good. I left the bathroom and like, shoot, I got it wrong. Like, and I held myself to such a high standard that I wanted to get the choices perfect every time. And I felt like I failed if I didn't. Or I would victimize myself, thinking it would be so much easier if I just had a partner to tap me out for just a few minutes. In that same situation, like the bath time situation, I'd be sitting in that bathroom, sitting on the floor, watching Griffin take a bath, just wishing that there was somebody out in that living room picking up from the day or doing the dishes so that I didn't have to go and do the dishes afterwards. Or if I didn't do the dishes, go to bed with a sink full of dirty dishes, just an extra hand doing something, helping me out. And I would essentially just throw myself a pity party. How often do you maybe hold yourself to this standard of perfectionism, of being this perfect mom? Or maybe do you put yourself in this silo that, sure, maybe others have it worse, like I understand that too, but also my life is hard too. And not taking away from the fact that your life is hard, but when we slip into this victim mindset, it feels good and validating for a split second right before it feels super isolating. And so it's a really dangerous place to live in that victim mindset. Or lastly, there's my go to trait of avoidance. I would compromise what I really wanted to do just to avoid a meltdown. Like in Target, I once bought Griffin a $30 toy. Not a cute $5 thing or even $10. No. This was a $30 toy because he asked for it and my default response was sure. Because I didn't want to say no and then have him melt down in front of other people. not because I actually wanted to get him the toy, or the time I gave him chocolate right before bed, right before, like literally in his bed, because I was just tapped out and would do anything to get him to be quiet at the end of the day. So, here is a journal prompt flow to help you to start thinking about the type of mom that you've been and the type of mom that you want to be and how to become her. The first is, how have I behaved as a mom that I'd like to release any shame or guilt around? For me, this was the fake crying or the screaming and raising my voice. The second, how would I like to behave as a mom? What is important to me? So I want to behave as the calm mom, the patient mom, the present during the meltdown mom. Third, what skills do I need to develop? And kind of think through as well, do I have any of these naturally? And do I have to build any of them from scratch? I feel like I'm a naturally patient person, so I can strengthen that I already have, but I had no clue how to navigate big emotions because I was learning how to navigate my own big emotions. So that was something that I needed to develop a skill around. And last but not least, what are my natural settings that are already getting in the way or that could prevent me from being that type of mom? So, that patient mom or that calm mom or whatever type of mom you want to be. And what I mean by natural settings are the ones that I mentioned, like potentially yours are the same, of avoidance, perfectionism, playing victim. Maybe you are the trying to do it all, overachieving mom. So, what are those like natural inclinations inside of you that just you default to that are actually not that beneficial, that we could work on turning it down a little bit and turning up the features that would actually help you to show up as the mom that you want to be? I would love truly to hear your answers. If you want to message me over on Instagram at samantha.s.says, or if you are listening to this on Spotify, just scroll down underneath the show notes and you'll see a comment section and you can just start typing a comment. And if you do that, you will be featured in my next episode. I'll give you a shout out and actually share what it is that you write. Most importantly, give yourself grace, mama. It is all trial and error. And I hope that you remember the importance of you creating the motherhood that you want to remember. I think so much of the societal focus, but also the focus of us as moms, we're always thinking about what can we create that our kids will remember? Like, what memories can we create that our kids are going to look back and remember? But we are creating our motherhood as well. Hopefully, we never lose the title of mother and we can't go back. Don't let autopilot dictate the rest of your life, the rest of your motherhood. Get off of autopilot, off of those default settings, and start living your life more intentionally. Use those journal prompts that I mentioned, and again, they're in the show notes. Use those journal prompts to start building awareness and creating your life more intentionally.